But let's dig a bit more seriously into the writing quality of Doom Eternal to further prove that point. I want to compare and contrast both of the main non-demon antagonists in Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, Dr. Samuel Hayden and the Kahn Mayker, because I think it'll really help drive that point home. And for the record, I'm going to be talking about Hayden in this section using only information provided by Doom 2016, as Eternal made substantial alterations to his character. And of course, the writers have the right to do that, just like how J.K. Rowling had the right to say that wizards shit themselves and teleported away. But as this is a comparison of one game's writing to the other, I think it makes sense to only consider his character pre-poop teleporting additions. Also, I wrote this paragraph in summer 2020. Yes, this video has been in production that long. And at the time, that was the worst thing J.K. Rowling had done. So, starting with Hayden, the main question I want to ask is, what's his motivation? Because, sure, he may be the antagonist, but a popular piece of writing advice is that no one wakes up in the morning and decides, today I'm going to be evil, even though it might seem like it. Quote, everyone is the hero of their own story. And so, what are his intentions? What are his goals and desires, and how does he frame them? Put simply, what does he want? Well, he wants to save humanity. So we're told that previously, Earth was in the middle of an energy crisis. Now, having combed through the codex, there doesn't seem to be much in the way of official lore regarding exactly what that meant, except for one interesting line talking about how humanity reacted to Argent energy. Quote, despite concern over the safety of producing energy with a process that is not fully understood, the need for a reliable energy source since the depletion of plutonium and uranium reserves is a powerful argument. So it seems that nuclear isn't an option anymore, and we can assume no one's figured out fission yet, and so that leaves only these smaller scale renewables, solar, wind, hydroelectric, etc. Left with only these options that presumably couldn't meet demand, we can pretty safely assume the Earth was going to shit. Scheduled electricity blackouts, millions or billions dying, potentially even full-scale war over remaining resources. Now, granted, the game itself doesn't have any reference to that, but Hayden sure does make it sound dire.
We spent decades perfecting the science, selling it to humanity. We balanced their hell energy with our science, making it usable and safe. We solved an energy crisis the world had no answer for. It works. You cannot do this.
Now, Hayden's no saint. He's absolutely an egomaniacal oligarch, and there is certainly the possibility that he's lying through his robot teeth. But since we can't ask anyone in the Doom universe for a second opinion, if we assume Hayden is even partially telling the truth here, then I think you can make a compelling argument that the Doomslayer is in the wrong. I think that if the Earth was going to shit and Hayden hadn't saved it with Argent energy, it's likely humanity would have killed itself, bombed each other into annihilation, fighting over resources. And that would have been the worst possible scenario. And sure, Hayden's actions might have led to the destruction of humanity anyway, just by way of demons instead of infighting, but at the very worst, he gave humanity an extra 30 years of life and prosperity. And at best, he did save them, because he kept the Doomslayer in a break glass in case of emergency box to counter this exact situation.
I pulled you from that tomb in the Cadinger Sanctum for this reason. I knew she was weak. Our work doesn't come without risks, and I released you from your prison to help mitigate those risks. I knew that in the event of a catastrophe, you'd be the only thing that could stop them.
Hayden is absolutely a dick, and the UAC is obviously corrupt to the core, but I think that if there are billions, dozens of billions, hundreds of billions maybe, of humans living happy lives directly and only because of Argent energy, that there is a needs of the many argument to be made here that Hayden is in the right and the Slayer is in the wrong.
If stopping our energy production is what you want, then you need only to destroy this last filter, and Argent energy will no longer exist in this solar system. We will be back at square one. You have no idea what you have just done.
And even if you disagree, and do think Hayden is ultimately in the wrong, it's these shades of gray I think are interesting. The fact that there's even a discussion to be had about who is in the right is interesting. You absolutely cannot call Hayden a one-dimensional cartoon bad guy. He sees himself as acting purely in the best interests of mankind, and even as having no choice in the matter.
You think the only way is to kill them all, leave nothing behind. And you may be right. But we can't just shut it all down. Without Argent energy, it will be worse. I don't expect you to agree. I am not the villain in this story. I do what I do because there is no choice.
He may be the antagonist, but I agree with him that he's not the villain. That beneath a thick egotism and corruption, he wakes up every day believing he is acting in the best interests of humanity. That he at least thinks that he has good intentions. But obviously, we all know what the road to hell is paved with. Meanwhile, the Kahn Mayker is a cartoon villain. So let's start by talking about her introduction. I mean, as we spoke about earlier, this scene was obviously really important to the writers, considering how much they had to bend the story and make all the characters involved idiots for it to happen in the first place. So it's gotta be really good to justify that, right? Well, right away, look at how dirty they do my boy Vega here, demoting him into the nonsense-spewing exposition machine.
The Kahn Maykr is present at this gathering, but when outside of her domain, she is by all accounts indestructible.
Okay, so somehow I know the Kahn Maykr is in the next room, even though she's not and teleports in later. I guess they must have publicly posted their evil meeting agenda somewhere. And she's the new big bad guy, and so the immediate question every player will be asking is why we don't kill her. Well, she's got an everything-proof shield for no reason, except when she's in Urdak, where the everything-proof shield doesn't work for no reason. Anyways, go get her, champ. Then we walk into the room, and right away we again see that there is no wit or originality in her writing whatsoever. Her entire character is the most generic shit possible. Like, we Maykrs are gods, and humans are but insignificant insects crushed beneath our foot, and you should like it that way.
For millennia we have survived, made others sacrifice in the name of our prosperity, so that they may in turn find redemption. Who are you? A human, once a mortal, to defy our traditions. You go too far this time. You cannot interfere. This is humanity's chance to repent, to give service to us.
Here's a question for id Software. What could she possibly mean by repent? What was humanity's sin, exactly? Using Argent energy, I guess? You know, like she does? And other characters try and pull this shit too, saying this is humanity's penance.
And now you seek to defy the Kahn Maykr herself. It is your people's time now to give penance, just as it was mine.
It is written. It is their time to give penance.
So the sin they're referring to has to be using Argent energy. But when you know the twist that it was Samuel Hayden, a Maykr, the Seraphim, who led humanity to Argent energy in the first place, then you know humanity did nothing wrong. They were just an innocent third party who got dragged into this war between Hell, the Maykrs, and the Sentinels. They didn't commit a sin to repent for. And then this line.
You cannot resist the will of the Kahn Maykr, for it was you who was meant to enforce it.
This, to me, seems pretty obviously included to make the player go, ooh, is there a secret backstory where the Slayer was given his powers by the Kahn Maykr, but now we're fighting against her? Wowee! But when you eventually read the backstory and find out the Slayer was really best pals with the Night Sentinels, not the Maykrs, and in fact already fought in a civil war against the Kahn Maykr in the past, and you know that he was given his powers by the Seraphim, who was explicitly acting against the Kahn Maykr, then you start to realize that line doesn't make any goddamn sense.
We must move. Quickly. There are those who would seek to stop this.
Spoiler alert, the vague those he's talking about is the Kahn Maykr, which again makes this line,
For it was you who was meant to enforce it.
very stupid. I don't know. It's like if you worked for a post office delivering mail, some of which happened to be Amazon boxes, and then 20 years later, Jeff Bezos tries to get you to murder everyone in the world, and when you refuse, he says, "You cannot resist the will of the Bezos, for it was you who was meant to enforce it." Like, I think you're overestimating the extent of our previous relationship here, my dude. So, yeah, bereft of any actual meaning, this entire conversation comes across to me as the writer mindlessly parroting mustache-twirling villain cliches. But dumb intro aside, what's her character like? What does she want? Well, she essentially has the exact same motivation as Hayden. She wants Argent energy to save her world.
I pity the humans. I do. Theirs is a hard role to play. But I too have a world to save. Without their souls, there can be no hell energy, and the Argent will cease to flow. I cannot allow this to happen. You will not stand in the way of Erdak's progress. This is how it has always been done. It is not for you to deny us our chance at prosperity.
Now, there are a couple of things wrong with this. First up, can I just say how boring I think it is that we are still hung up on Argent energy as the plot motivator? Infinite energy to save your species was a totally fine goal for a human like Hayden to have. But now that we're dealing with pseudo-angels who've existed since time began and possess unimaginably advanced technology and power, them having the exact same goal of lots and lots of electricity seems really lame. And when it comes to humans, you can quibble over the details of choosing Argent over nuclear, or if fission is an option in their universe or whatever, but you cannot tell me the Maykrs haven't built a Dyson sphere yet and made all of this irrelevant.
It is a perfect and unlimited energy resource.
Next, and again just like with Hayden, the game tries to argue that this conflict is morally gray, and that the Slayer might even be in the wrong. Several characters in the game make allusions to the idea that the Slayer is potentially a hypocrite for fighting to save humanity, as doing so poses a serious risk to the Kahn Maker's civilization.
Theirs is a hard role to play, but I too have a world to save.
The Kahn Maker needs Earth and its souls. Her world is dying. The culling allows her people to replenish their resources and survive. As you save your world, you put hers in peril.
I cannot stand by and watch as you put our future at risk. Earth will be consumed, and the energy will continue to flow. It is your people's survival against mine.
And again, this is really stupid. First of all, the character of the Slayer has been very consistent about his stance towards Argent Energy since Doom 2016. He hates it. He did his best to make sure humanity didn't have it, just like he is now doing his best to make sure the Makers don't have it. He's not a hypocrite. And in fact, when you know that Argent is made from the tortured souls of humans, it removes any moral ambiguity he had in Doom 2016. The Slayer is now 100% unquestionably in the right. And by the same token, having Hayden narrate that Argent is made from the tortured souls of humans means that he knew that all along, which removes any moral gray area he might have been in back in Doom 2016, retconning him to also be little more than a Captain Planet villain.
Argent energy is made from the souls of Hell's victims. This is the factory where that takes place. The humans must be tortured, the flesh tenderized. Once the spirit is broken and enough pain has been inflicted, only when the human has lost all hope will it be transferred to the soul extraction chamber. Your people are made to suffer, processed souls for the Kahn Maker's world. I assure you, this could have been avoided with different leadership.
This and the twist that he's the Seraphim are the reason we didn't acknowledge the sequel when talking about Hayden before. Okay, so here's a really deep philosophical question for you guys to consider. Is it morally right for the Makers to genocide an entire race of innocent people and then torture them in the afterlife for all of eternity just so they can... I actually don't even know what they want all of this electricity for? Keeping their lights on, powering all their floaty bullshit, and playing Xbox, I guess. Whatever. Is that a moral thing to do? No. Obviously no. There's nothing interesting here, no nuance to consider or a motive to understand. The Kahn Maykr is just the most boring kind of uncharismatic, I'm evil, mustache-twirling, one-note villain possible. And the fact that none of the other characters ever call her out on this, or question her insane logic, and instead are all just, yeah, I mean, I guess she has a point, and go along with it as though this isn't the dumbest shit in the universe, is incredibly frustrating. And finally, when Hayden went after Argent Energy, he was at least doing it for the sake of all of humanity, who are established in-game to exist. But when they try and pull this bullshit, the Maker just wants to protect her people twist, it doesn't work because she doesn't have any people. We see exactly one Maker Angel in the main game, one on Sentinel Prime, one.
Welcome home, Great Slayer.
And other than that guy, as far as we can tell, Urdak is only as big as this single castle, and contains exactly one living thing, the Kahn Maykr and a bunch of her Roombas. I mean, the least you could have done here is a codex entry saying, oh yeah, the entire species went on holiday while the player is here, and that's why you don't see anyone. But in the absence of that, the argument, oh, the Maykr just wants to protect her people, and so we're not so different, you and I, becomes the Kahn Maykr wants to kill and torture all of humanity, not for her people, because they don't exist, but just so she can keep her own personal air conditioner switched on. So, yeah, Saturday morning cartoon villain.